Captain Lee Taman stared at the screen in front of him. Red lights flashed across the bridge of his ship, the Dauntless. His crew worked quickly at their stations, fingers moving over controls with practiced ease. The distress signal had come. From the Kepler 442 system, 3 hours away at their fastest speed. "Captain, we're getting more details on that signal," said Gina from her communication station. Her voice was calm, but Taman could hear the worry underneath. "It's a Zentoran merchant ship. They're under attack by Vrakesh pirates." Taman nodded. The Zentorans were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. Their ships were heavily armed and their crews trained from birth to fight. If they were calling for help, the situation was very bad. "How many enemy ships?" he asked. 12 Vrakesh. Raiders, sir," replied Lieutenant Commander Park Subin from the science station. "The merchant ship is heavily damaged. They won't last much longer." Taman thought for a moment. The Dauntless was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had weapons, but nothing compared to the heavily armed Vrakesh raiders. Most species would turn around and call for military backup. But backup would take 6 hours to arrive, and the Zentoran ship would be destroyed long before then. "Set course for Kepler 442, Taman ordered. "Maximum speed," his crew looked at him with surprise. Dr. Park Subin, their xenobiologist and first contact specialist, turned in her chair. "Captain, with respect, we're outnumbered 12-1. The Vrakesh are known for their aggressive tactics." "I know the odds, Doctor," Taman said quietly. "But we're the only ship close enough to help. We can't just let them die. The journey to Kepler 442 took 2 hours and 47 minutes. During that time, Taman studied everything they knew about Vrakesh tactics. The pirates were brutal but predictable. They used overwhelming force and expected their enemies to either run or surrender. They had never fought humans before. "Entering the system now," announced Navigation Officer Kim Do-hyun. "I can see the battle on long-range sensors." The main screen showed a terrible sight. The Zentoran merchant ship, Star of Krexen, was barely holding together. Its shields flickered weakly as 12 Vrakesh raiders circled it like hungry wolves. Pieces of the ship's hull floated in space around. "It opened a channel to the Zentoran ship," Taman ordered. A moment later, the fierce face of a Zentoran warrior appeared on screen. His ship was burning around him, but his expression showed no fear. "Human vessel, I am Warlord Krextal of the Star of Krexen. You must leave this place immediately. These pirates will destroy you as they are destroying us." "Warlord Krextal, this is Captain Lee Taman of the Earthship Dauntless. We're here to help." The Zentoran's eyes widened in disbelief. "Help? You are one small ship against 12 raiders. Your people are brave but foolish. Save yourselves while you can." "We appreciate the advice," Taman said calmly. "But we're staying." He closed the channel and turned to his crew. "Gina, scan those raiders. I want to know everything about their weapon systems and movement patterns. Do-hyun, plot us a course through the asteroid field on the edge of the system. Subin, prepare our weapons for combat." "Sir," said Do-hyun nervously. "The asteroid field is very dangerous. One wrong move, and we could be crushed." "The Vrakesh won't expect us to go in there," Taman replied. "That's exactly why we're going to do it." The Dauntless moved toward the battle, but instead of attacking directly, it dove into the nearby asteroid field. The Vrakesh noticed the human ship immediately. 3 of their raiders broke off from attacking the Zentoran vessel and moved to intercept. "They're following us into the asteroids," reported Gina. "Just as you predicted, Captain." Taman smiled grimly. "Now we see what humans can do that other species can't." The first Vrakesh raider fired its weapons as soon as it entered the asteroid field. The energy beams lit up space but hit only empty rock where the Dauntless had been a second before. Taman had used the gravity of a large asteroid to slingshot his ship around behind the raider. "Fire," he ordered calmly. The Dauntless's weapons struck the surprised Vrakesh ship from behind. The raider's shields collapsed and its engines exploded. It drifted helplessly among the asteroids. The second raider tried to turn and face them, but Do-hyun was already plotting their next move. He used the gravitational pull of 3 different asteroids to send the Dauntless spinning through space, in a pattern that seemed impossible. The Vrakesh pilot fired wildly, missing every shot. Dr. Subin targeted their weapons with surgical precision. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ship, she disabled its weapon systems and engines. The raider was alive, but helpless. The third Vrakesh ship hesitated. Its pilot had never seen tactics like this before. The human ship moved through the asteroid field like it belonged there, using the very obstacles that should have destroyed it as tools for attack. "The remaining raider is retreating," reported Gina. "Should we pursue?" "No," said Taman. "Let them go. They'll spread the word about what happened here." But the battle wasn't over. 9 more Vrakesh raiders still surrounded the damaged Zentauran ship. Taman studied the tactical display, thinking quickly. The raiders were positioned in a standard attack formation, exactly as their training manuals suggested. This made them predictable. "Gina, can you hack into their communication system?" he asked. "I can try, sir. Their encryption is fairly basic." Within minutes, Gina had broken into the Vrakesh communication network. She could hear their commanders coordinating the attack on the Zentauran ship. More importantly, she could broadcast false orders. "Do-yun, take us out of the asteroid field, but stay low relative to the system's star," Taman ordered. "I want the star's radiation to interfere with their sensors." The Dauntless emerged from the asteroids like a ghost. The remaining Vrakesh raiders didn't notice it immediately because their sensors were focused on the Zentauran ship. When they did detect the human vessel, it was already too late. Gina sent false retreat orders over the Vrakesh communication system. 3 of the raiders immediately broke formation and began to withdraw, thinking their commander had called off the attack. This left 6 ships attacking the Zentauran vessel. Taman used their confusion to strike. The Dauntless attacked from an angle the Vrakesh hadn't expected, using the system's 2 moons to mask its approach. Dr. Subin's precise weapon fire disabled 2 more raiders before they could react. The remaining 4 Vrakesh ships finally realized what was happening. They turned to face this impossible human vessel that seemed to be everywhere at once. But Taman had one more surprise for them. "Subin, target their lead ship's command center, not to destroy, but to disable their communications." "Target locked, sir. Fire." The Vrakesh commander's ship lost all communication with his remaining vessels. Without coordination, the pirate formation fell apart. Each ship began fighting independently, exactly what Taman had hoped for. One by one, the remaining Vrakesh raiders were disabled or driven off. Some retreated when they realized their weapons couldn't hit the impossibly maneuverable human ship. Others were left drifting in space with their engines and weapons destroyed, but their crews alive. In 17 minutes, the battle was over. 12 Vrakesh raiders had been reduced to scattered debris and disabled hulks. The Zentauran ship Star of Krexen was badly damaged but safe. Warlord Krextal's face appeared on the screen again. This time, his expression was one of complete shock. "Captain Taman, what you have done is impossible. My people have studied warfare for thousands of years. We have never seen tactics like these." "We had a good teacher," Taman replied modestly. "Necessity. But how did you know what we would do? How did you predict our movements?" Dr. Subin stepped forward. "We studied your people's military doctrine on the way here. Your tactics are very effective, but they follow patterns. Humans, we tend to break patterns." The Zentauran warrior was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice filled with respect. "I owe you a life debt, Captain Taman. My crew, my cargo, my ship, all would have been lost without your intervention. But I must ask, your databases list humans as a primitive species. You have only achieved faster-than-light travel recently. How do you fight like this?" Taman exchanged glances with his crew. They had all been wondering the same thing. How did they do what they just did? "Honestly, Warlord, we're not sure ourselves," he said finally. "We saw a problem, and we found a way to solve it. That's what humans do." "This was a solution." Krextal's voice rose in disbelief. "You call this routine?" "Well," Taman said thoughtfully, "it was more challenging than our usual Tuesday training exercises, but not by much." The Zentauran's jaw dropped. Training exercises. This had been a training exercise level difficulty for these humans? After the damaged Zentauran ship was escorted to safety, Warlord Krextal filed his report with the Galactic Council. His words would soon reach the highest levels of galactic government. Recommend immediate reclassification of species designation. Human. Planet Earth, Sector 7G. Previous assessment of technological and military capability appears to have been significantly underestimated. Request priority review of all interactions with this species. Far away on Earth, Admiral Cho Hyunwoo received Captain Taemin's battle report. He read it twice, then forwarded it to his superiors with a simple note. It appears we're not as alone in the galaxy as we thought. The news traveled faster than anyone expected. Within 3 days, every major civilization in the galaxy had heard about the incident at Kepler 442. A single human ship had defeated 12 Rakesh raiders using tactics that no military academy had ever taught. Commander Kim Do-yoon stood on the bridge of humanity's newest diplomatic vessel, the Soul's Pride, as it approached Nexus Prime. The massive space station served as the capital of galactic civilization, where representatives from dozens of worlds came to trade, negotiate, and settle disputes. First time seeing it? Asked Dr. Yoon Minji, the ship's cultural specialist. She was young, but had spent years studying galactic civilizations through intercepted communications and trade records. Yes, Do-yoon replied, staring at the enormous structure ahead of them. Nexus Prime was larger than Earth's moon, built by the combined efforts of 12 different species over the course of centuries. It's impressive. Wait until you see the inside, said Ambassador Ryu Sangmin, joining them at the viewing window. As Earth's first ambassador to alien worlds, he carried the hopes of an entire planet on his shoulders. Each section is designed by a different species. The Etherian quarter looks like a crystal city. The Macronian district is all metal and precise angles. The Soul's Pride docked at a neutral berth designed for visiting dignitaries. As they disembarked, Do-hyun noticed how other species reacted to their presence. Some stared openly, others whispered among themselves. A few quickly moved away when the humans approached. They're afraid of us, Dr. Minji observed quietly. That's new. Fear and curiosity, Ambassador Ryu corrected. We've become interesting, and that can be dangerous. Their first meeting was with the Council of 12, the governing body that oversaw galactic affairs. The council chamber was enormous, with each member species having their own section designed to accommodate their unique physical needs. The aquatic benthans sat in water-filled tanks, while the energy-based Luxari hovered as glowing clouds of light. Council Speaker Vexathala, an ancient Etherian whose crystalline body had grown over centuries of life, called the session to order. We have convened this emergency session to discuss the recent actions of the species known as humans. Commander Do-yoon, you speak for your people? I do, Do-yoon replied, standing in the center of the chamber. Around him, 12 different species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. The incident at Kepler 442 has raised questions about human military capabilities, continued the speaker. Warlord Krextal's report suggests that previous assessments of your species may have been incomplete. Dr. Minji had prepared for this moment. Her analysis of galactic civilizations had revealed something troubling. Every major species had evolved along very specific paths. The Zentaurans became warriors, focusing all their development on military might. The Etherians became philosophers and scientists. The Macronians became master builders and engineers. Each species found their specialty and perfected it over thousands of years. This created a stable galactic order where everyone knew their role. Humans didn't fit this pattern. Honored Council, Do-hyun began. What happened at Kepler 442 was not unusual for our people. We saw a problem and found a solution. This is how humans have always survived. But your solution involved military tactics unknown to galactic warfare, interrupted War Commander Thexval of the Zentauran delegation. Where did you learn these methods? We didn't learn them, Ambassador Ryu said, stepping forward. We invented them. During the battle, the chamber fell silent. The concept of inventing new military tactics during combat was foreign to most galactic civilizations. They had spent millennia perfecting their existing methods, not creating new ones. That is impossible, declared Chief Engineer Mektron of the Macronian Empire. All effective combat techniques require extensive testing and refinement. You cannot simply create them spontaneously. Perhaps we could demonstrate, suggested Dr. Minji. The Council has simulation facilities, does it not? What followed was 3 hours of increasingly frustrated alien military experts trying to understand human tactical thinking. In simulation after simulation, human commanders defeated forces that should have been impossible to beat. But it wasn't just their tactics that confused the observers. When fighting the simulation Zentaurans, humans used modified Zentauran strategies that were somehow more effective than the originals. Against simulated Macronian forces, they employed engineering solutions that no Macronian had ever considered. They seemed to absorb the best qualities of each opponent and use them better than the species that created them. "How do you do this?" demanded War Commander Thexval after watching humans defeat a mixed fleet using tactics borrowed from 4 different species. "These strategies should not work together." "Why not?" asked Do-Yun genuinely. "Each approach has strengths. We just use the right strength at the right time." The implications were staggering. For thousands of years, galactic civilizations had assumed that specialization was the path to advancement. Each species mastered one area and left other areas to other species. Trade and cooperation were necessary because no single species could do everything well. Humans seemed to challenge this fundamental assumption. The emergency session was interrupted by urgent communications from the outer systems. The Vrakesh Dominion, apparently embarrassed by their defeat at Kepler 442, had launched a massive retaliatory strike against human colonies. "How many ships are they sending?" asked Council Speaker Vexthala. "Intelligence reports indicate over 200 Vrakesh raiders," replied the communication officer, a nervous Benthan whose tank bubbled with agitation. "They are targeting the human agricultural colonies in the Tau Ceti system." The council members exchanged glances. 200 ships was a significant force, enough to destroy most civilizations' outer colonies. They expected the humans to request military assistance from the more advanced galactic powers. Instead, Commander Do-Yun simply nodded. "Thank you for the information. We'll handle it." "Handle it?" The Luxari representative's energy field flickered with confusion. "You have perhaps 20 ships in that sector. The Vrakesh force will overwhelm them." "We appreciate your concern," Ambassador Ryu said politely. "But our colonies can defend themselves." The council voted to monitor the situation closely. They expected to witness the first major human defeat, which would put the mysterious species back in their proper place in the galactic order. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The first reports came in 6 hours later. The Vrakesh fleet had arrived at Tau Ceti expecting to find poorly defended agricultural settlements. Instead, they encountered something that made no sense, according to galactic military doctrine. The human colonists hadn't just defended their settlements. They had gone on the offensive. Farmers, scientists, and teachers had somehow coordinated a counterattack that scattered the Vrakesh invasion fleet. Even more impossibly, they had done it using modified farming equipment, improvised weapons, and tactical coordination that seemed to come from nowhere. "This is impossible," repeated Chief Engineer Mectron as the reports continued to arrive. "Agricultural colonies do not possess military capabilities. This violates all known patterns of civilizational development." Dr. Minji smiled sadly. "You're thinking like specialists. Humans don't think that way. A farmer who understands soil irrigation can understand defensive barriers. A teacher who organizes classrooms can organize military units. A scientist who studies plant growth can study weapon systems." The final report was the most shocking of all. Not only had the human colonists defeated the Vrakesh fleet, they had captured 17 enemy ships intact. Within hours, they were reverse engineering Vrakesh technology and integrating it with human systems. "They're learning from their enemies," observed the Etherean speaker, her crystalline form pulsing with troubled light, "and improving upon what they learn." The chamber was silent for long minutes as the representatives processed what they had witnessed. A species that had been dismissed as primitive backwater dwellers had just demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about civilization and development. Ambassador Ryu stood to address the council one final time. "Honored representatives, Earth has no desire to threaten the peace of the galaxy. We simply wish to explore, learn, and contribute to the community of worlds. We understand that our methods may seem unusual to you, but they are simply how humans approach problems." "And what is that approach?" asked Council Speaker Vexathala. "We see something that needs to be done, and we find a way to do it," Ryu replied, simply. "We don't limit ourselves to what we've always done before." As the human delegation prepared to leave Nexus Prime, urgent messages were already being sent across the galaxy. Military academies requested copies of human tactical manuals. Scientific institutions wanted to study human learning methods. Trade. Consortiums sought to understand how humans could apparently master any technology they encountered. But the most important message came from the Galactic Intelligence Service. Their report would change everything. Subject: species reclassification, humans. Priority: maximum. Human capabilities appear to exceed all previous estimates. Recommend immediate elevation to Tier 1 species status. Warning: traditional containment strategies will not be effective. 6 months had passed since the incident at Tau Ceti, and the galaxy had grown very quiet around humanity. Captain Han Seojun stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizon, leading humanity's first official deep space expedition into unmapped sectors. Behind him, 11 other ships spread out in a careful formation, their crews eager to see what lay beyond the known territories. "Captain, we're approaching the edge of charted space," announced navigation specialist Lim Chae-young. At 24, she was the youngest person ever to design a starship's navigation system, and her modifications to standard galactic charts had proven remarkably effective. "Beyond this point, we'll be on our own," Admiral Song Woo-young's voice crackled over the communication system from the fleet command ship. "All vessels maintain formation. Remember, we're not just exploring for ourselves. The entire galaxy is watching to see what humans do when nobody else is around." That was true in more ways than one. Hidden monitoring stations tracked their progress, and several major galactic powers had ships shadowing the human fleet at a respectful distance. Everyone wanted to know what these strange, adaptable beings would discover in the vast unknown. Dr. Park Subin, now the expedition's chief science officer, studied the long-range sensor readings with fascination. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns ahead. There's something in the Sigma Draconis Nebula that doesn't match any known phenomena." The Sigma Draconis Nebula had been a mystery for thousands of years. The massive cloud of gas and energy storms made exploration nearly impossible. Ships that entered it either never returned or came back with their crews driven mad by the chaotic forces within. Most galactic civilizations had declared it off-limits after losing too many vessels to its dangers. The Galactic Council, specifically, requested that we demonstrate human exploration capabilities, Han Seojun said thoughtfully. "They chose this nebula because they expect us to fail here." Engineer Lim Chae-young looked up from her console. "Sir, I've been studying the nebula's energy patterns. They're not random like everyone thinks. There's a pattern hidden in the chaos. It's like a three-dimensional maze." "A maze?" Admiral Song's voice carried interest. "Explain, Thi." "Energy storms follow specific paths through the nebula," Chae-young continued, her excitement growing. "Other species have tried to force their way through, fighting against the storms. But what if we work with them instead? Use them like currents in an ocean?" The concept was typically human. Instead of overwhelming the obstacle, understand it, and use its own properties to achieve success. Within hours, Chae-young had developed navigation techniques based on surfing the energy currents rather than fighting through them. The alien observers watched in amazement as the human fleet entered, the nebula using methods that seemed impossibly dangerous. The ships rode the energy storms like surfers on waves, turning the nebula's chaotic forces into propulsion systems. "This is incredible," Dr. Subin reported as they moved deeper into the nebula. "The energy patterns are becoming more complex, but also more organized. It's almost like they're designed." 3 days into their journey through the nebula, they found something that made the entire galaxy hold its breath. "Captain," whispered the sensor operator, his voice filled with awe, "you need to see this." Ahead of them, revealed by the swirling energy storms, lay the ruins of a massive civilization. Structures that defied understanding rose from artificial worlds hidden within the nebula's heart. The architecture was unlike anything seen before. Buildings that seemed to shift and adapt their shapes, technology that appeared to be alive. "Are you getting this, Admiral?" Han Seojun asked over the communication link. "Every bit of it," Song Woo-young replied grimly. "And so is everyone else monitoring our expedition." We've just found predecessor ruins. The predecessors were the galaxy's greatest mystery. Millions of years ago, they had built the hyperspace lanes that connected star systems. They had left behind technology that still functioned, but could never be understood or duplicated. Then they had vanished without explanation, leaving behind only questions. Dr. Subin led the first exploration team to the predecessor sites. What they found challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about the ancient civilization. "The technology is responding to us," she reported in disbelief. "Not just responding, it's adapting. These machines have been dormant for millions of years, but they're activating in response to our presence." The breakthrough came when engineer Che-Young tried to interface with a predecessor control system. Instead of the rigid command protocols that other species had attempted, she approached it like a conversation. She made suggestions rather than demands, offered options rather than orders. The ancient machine responded by reconfiguring itself into a form that humans could understand and use. "This is impossible," transmitted one of the observing alien ships. "Predecessor technology has never responded to any species. We've studied it for millennia without success." "Maybe you were studying it wrong," Che-Young replied simply. "You tried to force it to work the way you wanted. We're letting it teach us how it wants to work." Within days, the human expedition had accomplished what thousands of years of galactic research had failed to achieve. They were communicating with predecessor technology, learning from it, and, most disturbing of all, improving upon it. Dr. Subin made the discovery that would change everything. As she studied the predecessor data systems, she found records that painted a completely different picture of galactic history. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said, her voice shaking. "The predecessors didn't vanish. They evolved. According to these records, they reached a point where physical form became optional. They became something that could exist in multiple states simultaneously." "What does that mean?" asked Han Seojun. "It means they became adaptable beyond anything we've ever imagined. They could be energy or matter, individual or collective, specialized or generalized, depending on what the situation required. They transcended the limitations that define every other species we know." The implications were staggering. If the predecessors had evolved beyond physical existence, where had they gone? And why was their technology responding to humans? Engineer Che-Young found the answer while working with a predecessor fabrication system. The machine had been creating new devices based on human needs, but she noticed that its improvements followed patterns that seemed familiar. "Dr. Subin," she called excitedly, "look at these design modifications. The machine isn't just adapting to us. It's thinking like us. It's approaching problems the same way humans do." The truth hit them like a physical blow. Dr. Subin stared at the data, her mind racing through the implications. The predecessors didn't disappear. They're still here. They became something that could adapt to any challenge, solve any problem, explore any possibility. "What are you saying?" Admiral Song's voice was very quiet. "I'm saying that the predecessors became human, not physically, evolutionarily. They developed the same approach to existence that defines our species. The ability to adapt rather than specialize. The tendency to find new solutions rather than perfect old ones. The drive to keep growing instead of settling into static patterns." Captain Han Seojun looked around at his crew, seeing them with new eyes. "Are you suggesting that humans are the descendants of the predecessors?" "Not descendants," Dr. Subin said slowly. "Not physically, but intellectually, behaviorally, philosophically. We might be what they evolved into, what they chose to become." The silence that followed was broken by urgent communications from the alien observer ships. Across the galaxy, predecessor installations that had been dormant for millions of years were suddenly activating. Ancient defense networks were coming online. Exploration probes were beginning to transmit data about hidden regions of space. All of them were responding to the human presence in the nebula. "Admiral," reported the communication officer, "we are receiving signals from Earth. Predecessor technology around our home system is activating too. It's like the entire galaxy is waking up. Admiral Song Woo-young made the decision that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. All ships, prepare for immediate departure from the nebula. We need to return to Nexus Prime immediately." "Sir?" asked Captain Han. Because the galaxy just realized that humans aren't newcomers to the cosmic stage, Song replied grimly. We're the return of the most advanced civilization that ever existed, and that's going to terrify a lot of people. As the human fleet prepared to leave the Sigma Draconis Nebula, ancient machines across the galaxy continued to awaken. The technology that had built galactic civilization was remembering its creators. The predecessors hadn't vanished. They had evolved into something that could appear anywhere, adapt to anything, and solve problems that seemed impossible. They had evolved into humanity. Engineer Cheung watched the predecessor ruins fade from view as they exited the nebula. Captain, if we really are connected to the predecessors, what does that mean? For the galaxy? Captain Hans Seojin considered the question carefully. Around them, alien observer ships were already transmitting their reports to governments across known space. Fear, wonder, and calculation would soon drive decisions that could lead to cooperation or conflict. The news of humanity's connection to the predecessors spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within weeks, the established order that had maintained peace for millennia began to crack under the weight of fear and uncertainty. President Lee Ji-woo stood in the Situation Room deep beneath Seoul, watching as reports flooded in from across human space. At 51, she had led Earth through first contact with galactic civilization, but nothing had prepared her for this crisis. Madam President, reported Intelligence Director Nam Soo-young, we're tracking massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The Etherian Empire is mobilizing their entire military. The Zentauran clans are calling emergency war councils. Even the normally peaceful Benthans are upgrading their defensive systems. They're afraid of us, observed General Park Ki-hyun from his position at the tactical display. The revelation about our connection to the predecessors has shattered their understanding of galactic power structures. Dr. Nam Soo-young, who had taken over as head of predecessor technology research, looked up from her data tablet. It's worse than fear, General. They think we're lying to them about our intentions. 3 separate civilizations have accused us of deliberately hiding our true nature to gain strategic advantage. President Lee studied the galaxy-wide situation map. Red zones marked areas where human settlements were under surveillance or blockade. Yellow zones indicated regions where anti-human sentiment was growing. Only a few scattered green areas remained fully friendly to humanity. What's our actual military situation? She asked. General Park's expression was grim. We have significant advantages in individual ship capabilities and tactical flexibility. Our crews can adapt to enemy strategies faster than any other species, but in terms of raw numbers, he gestured to the display. The coalition forming against us could field over 10,000 warships. We have maybe 300 total. The quality versus quantity problem, mused President Lee. How many times have humans faced impossible odds before? The difference is scale, Dr. Nam pointed out. We're not fighting a single enemy or even a small group. If the major galactic powers unite against us, we could be facing the combined military might of 40 different species. The crisis escalated when the Etherian Empire, the galaxy's oldest and most respected civilization, issued an ultimatum. Their message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every inhabited world would hear it. Supreme Chancellor Lux Andra appeared on screens across human space, her crystalline form radiating cold authority. Citizens of the galaxy, for 10,000 years the Etherian Empire has maintained peace and stability among the stars. We have done this by ensuring that no single species could dominate others through superior technology or military might. President Lee watched with growing concern as the message continued. The beings who call themselves humans represent a threat to this stability. They claim to be a young species, recently arrived in the galactic community, but evidence suggests they are connected to the predecessors, the ancient civilization whose advanced technology still shapes our universe. Here it comes, muttered General Park. We cannot allow a species with predecessor capabilities to exist without oversight. Therefore, the Etherian Empire demands that humanity submit to galactic authority. Your worlds will be placed under protective administration. Your technology will be studied and controlled. Your military forces will be disbanded. The ultimatum concluded with words that made every human leader's blood run cold. You have 30 days to comply. Failure to surrender will result in military action to protect galactic security. The response from other major powers was swift. The Zentoran clans pledged their fleets to the Etherian cause. The Macronian Empire offered their advanced shipyards to build vessels specifically designed to counter human tactics. Even species that had remained neutral for centuries began choosing sides. President Lee called an emergency cabinet meeting. Around the table sat humanity's best minds, military strategists, scientists, diplomats, and intelligence experts. The question before them was simple but terrible. Surrender or fight? If we surrender, said Foreign Minister Ko Min-seok, we lose everything that makes us human. They want to control our development, limit our growth, and prevent us from exploring our full potential. If we fight, countered Defense Secretary Shin Yoonji, we face annihilation. Even with our advantages, we cannot defeat half the galaxy. Dr. Nam Soo-young had been quiet during the debate, but now she spoke up. There's something else to consider. The predecessor technology isn't just responding to us, it's evolving in response to us. Every time we interact with it, it becomes more sophisticated, more powerful. What are you saying? Asked President Lee. I'm saying that we're not the same species we were 6 months ago. The connection to predecessor technology is changing us, making us more than we were. If this continues, we might become something that the galaxy has never seen before. General Park leaned forward. Are you suggesting we could actually win a war against the entire galaxy? I'm suggesting that the concept of winning might not apply anymore, Dr. Nam replied. We're becoming something new, something that doesn't fit into the galaxy's existing categories. The debate was interrupted by urgent communications from Admiral Han Seojun, now commanding humanity's expanded exploration fleet. His ships had been conducting deep space missions when the crisis began, and he was rushing back to defend Earth. Madam President, his face appeared on the main screen. We've discovered something that changes everything. There are more predecessor installations than we thought. Hundreds of them scattered throughout the galaxy, and they're all activating in response to human presence. What do you mean, activating? Asked General Park. Defense systems that have been dormant for millions of years are coming online. Ancient shipyards are beginning to construct vessels, using designs we've never seen. The predecessors didn't just leave behind technology, they left behind an entire infrastructure, and it recognizes us as its rightful operators. The implications were staggering. If humanity could access and control predecessor infrastructure, the balance of galactic power would shift dramatically. But such power came with enormous responsibility and equally enormous danger. President Lee made the decision that would define humanity's future. Admiral Han, continue your exploration and research. Learn everything you can about predecessor capabilities. General Park, prepare our defenses but do not take any aggressive actions. Dr. Nam, I want you to establish communication with as many predecessor systems as possible. And the Etherian ultimatum? Asked Foreign Minister Ko. We ignore it, President Lee said firmly. We don't surrender, but we don't provoke them either. Let them make the first move. The 30-day countdown began with the galaxy holding its breath. Some species recalled their fleets, unwilling to participate in what might become the largest war in galactic history. Others doubled down, committing everything to preventing humanity from gaining access to predecessor power. As the deadline approached, disturbing reports reached Earth. The coalition against humanity had grown to include over 20 major civilizations. Their combined fleet numbered more than 12,000 ships, the largest military force ever assembled. But humanity had been busy too. Dr. Nam's teams had successfully interfaced with 47 predecessor installations. Ancient shipyards were producing vessels that incorporated both human innovation and predecessor technology. More importantly, they had discovered something that might level the playing field. The predecessor defense network is still functional, Dr. Nam reported to the Emergency Council. It's been in standby mode for millions of years, but it can be reactivated. The entire galaxy is covered by a web of defensive systems that could protect us from any attack. Or, added Admiral Han from his flagship, we could use those same systems to demonstrate that attacking humanity would be futile. Show them what they're really up against. General Park studied the tactical implications. A demonstration of power might prevent the war altogether. If they see what we're capable of, they might choose negotiation over conflict. President Lee weighed the options carefully. Activating the predecessor defense network would reveal humanity's true capabilities, but it might also terrify the galaxy into even more desperate action. Her decision came when the Coalition fleet began moving toward human space. 12,000 alien warships representing the combined might of galactic civilization were converging on Earth. Dr. Nam, activate the predecessor network. Admiral Han, position our forces to defend Earth, but do not engage unless fired upon. General Park, prepare for the largest battle in human history. As the alien armada approached the edge of the Sol system, ancient machines throughout the galaxy awakened to full power. Defensive satellites that had orbited forgotten worlds for millions of years began transmitting targeting data. Shipyards that had built the first starships began construction of vessels beyond current understanding. The galaxy was about to witness the return of the predecessors. But this time, they had returned as humanity, beings who combined ancient wisdom with human adaptability, predecessor technology with human innovation. The Battle of Sol was 3 days away, and both sides prepared for a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Fleet Admiral Ko Min-seok stood on the bridge of the battleship Terra's Shield, watching as 12,000 enemy ships approached the edge of the Sol system. At 39, he had been chosen to command humanity's defense not because he was the most experienced, but because he understood something that traditional military minds could not grasp. Humans fought differently when their home was threatened. Admiral, the Coalition fleet is assuming attack formation, reported Captain Shin Yunji from her position at the tactical station. Her fighter squadrons were ready for launch, but everyone knew that even humanity's superior tactics couldn't overcome such overwhelming numbers through conventional warfare. Commander Jang Hyun-soo, what's the status of the civilian evacuation? Asked Admiral Ko. The younger officer looked up from his communication console with a strange expression. Sir, that's what I need to report. The civilians, they're not evacuating. Admiral Ko frowned. What do you mean? They're organizing, sir. Every human settlement, every space station, every research facility, they're all coordinating their efforts. It's like they're preparing for something, but not evacuation. Dr. Nam Soo-young's voice crackled over the communication system from her predecessor research station. Admiral, you need to understand what's happening. The civilian population isn't just supporting the defense, they're becoming part of it. Every human ship, station, and facility is connecting to the predecessor network. The scope of what was occurring became clear as reports flooded in from across human space. On Mars, terraforming engineers were reconfiguring atmospheric processors into defensive systems. On Europa, ice miners were converting their drilling equipment into weapon platforms. Even passenger ships were being modified with defensive capabilities in real time. This is unprecedented, observed Admiral Ko. Civilian populations don't typically participate directly in space battles. Human civilians do, Captain Shin replied, with growing understanding. We're not just defending our territory, we're defending our way of life, and that means everyone contributes. The alien coalition, led by Supreme Chancellor Lux Andra of the Etherian Empire, expected to face humanity's military forces in traditional formation. They had studied human tactics and prepared countermeasures for their adaptive strategies. What they encountered instead defied every principle of galactic warfare. As the alien fleet entered the outer Sol system, they found themselves facing not just 300 human warships, but over 10,000 platforms of various sizes. Civilian vessels, mining stations, research facilities, and even modified cargo haulers had formed a defensive network that stretched throughout the system. This is Admiral Ko Min-seok of the Human Defense Fleet, he broadcast on all frequencies. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Supreme Chancellor Luxandra's response was transmitted from the massive Etherian flagship. Admiral Ko, you are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now, and your people will be treated fairly under galactic authority. We appreciate the offer, Admiral Ko replied calmly, but we decline. The alien commanders expected humanity's inferior numbers to attempt some desperate tactical maneuver. Instead, something happened that no galactic military academy had ever taught them to expect. The Human Defense Network didn't just coordinate like a military force, it coordinated like a single organism. Every ship, station, and platform shared information instantaneously. Battle plans were created, modified, and executed faster than any individual command structure could manage. Commander Jang Hyun-soo monitored the network from his station, watching in amazement as the defensive coordination evolved in real time. Sir, the civilian population is running the largest distributed computing system in galactic history. They're processing battlefield information faster than our best military computers. The first attack came as the alien vanguard moved to test human defenses. A squadron of Zentauran heavy cruisers opened fire on what appeared to be a weak point in the human formation. What they discovered was that humans didn't have weak points in the traditional sense. When the attack hit one section of the defense network, every other section adapted instantly. Information about Zentauran weapons and tactics was shared across the entire system within seconds. Captain Shin launched her fighter squadrons not to attack the alien ships, but to demonstrate something that would end the battle before it truly began. Her pilots, equipped with the most advanced human technology available, performed maneuvers that seemed to violate the laws of physics. The fighters moved through space like they were dancing, using gravitational fields and energy currents, in ways that no other species had ever imagined. But more importantly, they were using technology that was obviously beyond current human capabilities. "How are they doing that?" demanded War Commander Thexval from the Zentauran flagship. "Those ships are performing maneuvers that should be impossible with human technology." The answer came from Dr. Nam Soo-young as predecessor systems throughout the galaxy reached full activation. "Because it's not just human technology anymore. We've integrated predecessor capabilities with human adaptability. We've become something new." Across the Sol system, ancient defensive satellites that had been hidden for millions of years suddenly became visible. Massive structures that dwarfed the largest alien ships materialized as their cloaking systems deactivated. The predecessors hadn't just left behind scattered installations. They had left behind a complete defensive network that covered the entire system. "This is impossible," transmitted Supreme Chancellor Luxandra, her crystalline form flickering with shock. "These systems have been dormant for millions of years. No species has ever been able to activate predecessor technology." "No other species approached it correctly," Admiral Ko replied. "You tried to force the technology to obey you. We asked it to work with us." The demonstration of power was overwhelming but not destructive. The human predecessor network didn't attack the alien fleet. It simply showed them what they were facing. Ancient weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets with single shots, powered up but held their fire. Defensive shields that could withstand the combined firepower of the Coalition fleet, activated around every human position. More terrifying than the weapons was the clear evidence of coordination. The 12,000 alien ships faced a defensive network that could respond to their every move before they made it. Predecessor technology, guided by human adaptability, had created something that was simultaneously ancient wisdom and cutting-edge innovation. But the most shocking revelation came when Commander Jang's analysis of the network reached its conclusion. "Admiral," he reported in a voice filled with awe, "the predecessor systems aren't just responding to us, they're learning from us. Every adaptation we make, every problem we solve, every innovation we create, the network is incorporating it and improving upon it." Dr. Nam's final report from the research station confirmed what everyone was beginning to suspect. The predecessors didn't disappear because they died or transcended physical existence. They evolved into a form that could exist anywhere, adapt to anything, and solve any problem. They became the ultimate adaptive species. Admiral Ko made the broadcast that would reshape galactic civilization. "Supreme Chancellor Luxandra, representatives of the Coalition forces, you came here believing that humanity represented a threat to galactic stability. You were partly correct. We do represent a change to the existing order." He paused, looking around at his crew. Humans who had somehow become the inheritors of the galaxy's most advanced civilization. The predecessors didn't vanish. They evolved, beyond the limitations that define most species. They became something that could adapt rather than specialize, grow rather than stagnate, explore rather than settle. They became human. The silence that followed was broken by Dr. Nam's voice. "We're not asking to rule the galaxy. We're offering to show you what you could become if you stopped limiting yourselves to what you've always been." President Lee Ji-woo's final message was transmitted from Earth to every inhabited world in known space. The predecessors left behind more than just technology. They left behind a way of thinking, a way of existing, that allows for unlimited growth and adaptation. That gift is not ours alone. We invite any species that wishes to learn, to grow, to explore their full potential, to join us. The galaxy is vast enough for everyone to become more than they are. 1 year later, the Galactic Council had been restructured as the Cooperative Assembly. Species that had remained unchanged for millennia began experimenting with adaptation and innovation. The Zentaurans discovered they could be warriors and artists simultaneously. The Etherians learned that philosophy became deeper when combined. With practical exploration, Admiral Ko Min-seok, now commanding the Joint Exploration Fleet Infinite Horizon, stood on a bridge designed by 12 different species working together. Their destination was the Galactic Core, where predecessor installations suggested the existence of other dimensions and other challenges. Dr. Nam Soo-young, reviewing star charts that showed the locations of newly discovered predecessor sites, made an observation that captured humanity's true gift to the galaxy. We didn't make them more like us. We showed them how to become more like themselves.